couple interesting people sitting at this table. How did we get here? Even though we may not have we came very close to not being here.
Why?
Well, my grandparents went through the Holocaust.
Yes.
So that's not too far back.
Close you came.
Yeah. And when I heard that this episode was going to be about the Armenian genocide, I relate to it as a Hebrew and understanding the ramifications it had, uprooting my family from downtown Germany to downtown San Francisco. It's quite a journey. And a lot of people didn't make it.
They didn't. And
that's why I rely on my experience as a soldier to get me through these scenarios. I'm not going to cry, and I'm going to try not to. But I really feel, and I always have felt, that it's important to understand the past so that we do not repeat it. So I'm going to move your mic a little closer.
Okay.
And I know this isn't the easiest subject, but you are a master of handling uneasy subjects. So I'm actually looking forward to this because I know this is going to be informational and educational as well as informative. So welcome, Dr. Reverend
thank you.
Farkas Kasuni. That's our Cass.
Okay. And
seems like another legacy interview to me.
Yeah, this legacy interview, I thought of it yesterday driving back from my daughter's house in Napa.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my gosh, we will be recording on April 24, Thursday, and that's the exact day that is the commemoration of what is known as the forgotten genocide of the 20th century, the first genocide of the 20th century.
We cannot forget.
1914, 1918.
We cannot forget.
Yeah.
It is interesting that this day, too often, more than not, falls on the same day as the NFL draft.
Oh, gee.
So if there's, because today's the NFL draft,
I didn't
at
know
least
that.
day one. So I think this is what we were talking about earlier, is the NFL was a nonprofit. They could really use their stance to bring a lot of awareness to things like that, but they won't, so we will.
Well, it's for us Armenians, we are, at least I am, very aware that it's a ho-hum subject for most people. They've heard all kinds of genocides, so what's new? First of all, the word genocide itself is a unique term that was created by a man called Raphael Lemkin.
Okay.
Lemkin, one of my heroes, forgotten heroes.
Hero is a hero, my friend.
He coined the term when he went through the sufferings of the Jewish people in Poland.
Okay. That's right. He was a Polish attorney.
He was a young man born there. And he grew up reading about genocides. He was fascinated with old stories.
Okay.
And like the destruction of Carthage and the Huguenots in France. By the way, Huguenots were French Protestants. They were a growing group in France in the 1500s, and the Catholics got kind of worried about it, and so they instituted a massacre. It's called the Massacre of the Huguenots on St. Bartholomew's Day, 15-something, I don't remember the name.
Okay.
So he was fascinated with that story.
Yeah, I see the book you brought is 100 Years Strong, The Armenian Genocide in Posters, 1915 to 2015. And I thumbed through it, and the pictures really give me a concept of the times.
Yeah, these are actual reproduction of posters.
That's what I like.
From 1914 to the present day.
Because I make flyers for lots of different things, and you can really tell the sign of the times the way the flyer is built.
And the author, Dikran Kasuni, is my cousin's son.
I noticed the last name.
And I did not take his permission, but I'm sure he'll be delighted to know that I'm displaying it today. Fantastic posters that tell the story. But going back to my focus today
Okay.
is the story of Raphael Lemkin.
Okay.
Lemkin, after the Second World War, he escaped Poland during the war, beginnings of the war, 30s and 40s. They abandoned their village, lived in the forests. The battle between the Soviet system, Soviet Russia, and Germany.
Wow.
As you know, they divided up Poland. So he escaped, but 49 members of his family did not escape. They perished.
49
They
members.
perished in the Holocaust. And the Nazi atrocities were something that captured his attention. And during the Nuremberg trials, he
Very
was a
famous.
lawyer by then.
Wow.
He had escaped, gone to England, and survived. Nuremberg trials, he became aware that there was something very lacking. What was lacking was an international tribunal
Okay.
to prevent future Hitlers from arising. And so he worked very hard, and he worked hard to create what is known as the International Convention. And in 1948, the United Nations approved the Genocide Convention. And so this was the beginning of his very necessary work that led eventually to International Criminal Court of Justice. And
this is the guy that coined the word genocide, right?
yeah, genocide comes from two words, genos,
Which is
meaning
Greek.
family, clan, or tribe.
Right.
Genos, genealogy.
Correct.
And side, which meaning killing, like pesticide.
Yes, all the sides.
insecticide,
Suicide. Yes.
So, meaning killing. The term was included in the 1944 research work Axis Rule in Occupied Europe, wherein Lemkin documented mass killings of ethnic groups. And this was 30 years of his. So this
Thou shalt not kill. I think this is also a great segue, not for a long explanation, but back to the podcast we did before, which was The Beast and Man. It really reflects here. So if you haven't seen that,
by the
continue to
way,
watch it.
I got some friends who said they read that or listened to it.
Really?
The Beast and Man, yeah.
Well, that the thumbnail, the picture was quite
Yes,
taking.
yes.
And what was there? So anytime you get feedback on your podcast, it usually struck a chord.
Well, appreciative, but did not dwell on it. You know, they just said
Yes.
they had.
Let it flow.
Now, what captured his really imagination and his attention was the stories of the Armenian massacres of the Armenians. Began on this day, April 24, 1915,
Okay.
in Turkey.
Okay.
It began with the hanging of a couple of hundred intelligentsia leaders of the community
Okay.
in the public square in Istanbul. What is Istanbul today? He then began to read more and more about it, and then heard about the assassination of the perpetrator of the genocide in Berlin by one called Sogomon, which is Solomon, Tehlirian, who intentionally followed and assassinated this man who had escaped Turkey after the war.
Okay.
As you know, the Ottoman Empire fell, and the leadership were all being pursued by justice.
Correct.
So this man had gone to Berlin, and as he was walking, this man, Tehlirian, walked behind him and shot him in the head. He was tried, and he confessed he was guilty. He said, "This is for the memory of the almost 2 million of my people who were assassinated and killed in the genocide." And he was dismissed in the court.
What?
Yeah. He was released because it was called justifiable genocide or assassination. Now,
Wow.
Lemkin was fascinated with this story. So he continued to read about them, and later on, when he succeeded in the establishment of the International Court of Genocide, he referred to the Armenians.
Okay.
What's fascinating to me is he was Jewish.
Okay.
And he realized how the genocide of the Armenians in 1914-18 that went almost unrecognized to the Holocaust. And interestingly enough, the same people, the German people.
Yes.
And if you read Ambassador Morgenthau's story, Ambassador Morgenthau was the American ambassador to Turkey during the First World War. He's Jewish. And it's a personal account of the Armenian genocide, according to him. He documents how the German government was almost in control of the Ottoman Empire. And they encouraged the elimination of the Armenians as the final solution, which is what the Turks did. So it is not just genocide, but it's ethnic cleansing. I don't have a map to show you here.
Bad with a sprinkle
but
of...
Central and Eastern Turkey...
We have the map. We have a...
Yeah.
Are you talking about this this one right here?
Yeah.
I'll put it up on the graphics for you.
You'll see how the Central and Eastern, which is a shaded portion, the shaded portion here is where the Armenians were, and they were pushed out, they were cleansed, and they were pushed into the deserts of Syria, which is today in the news.
Just because they disagree. It's all on a base disagreement.
It's not just disagreement, it's wanting the land exclusively for themselves. That's what ethnic cleansing does.
This is all over real estate? Like...
It is. And what's happening, and if I may digress.
Digress.
The problem with Gaza is no longer the matter of the hostages.
Okay.
But it is a desire on the part of the settler element, the ultra-conservative nationalistic element, to take over ethnic cleansing, to take the Arabs out of Gaza and to repopulate Gaza with their settlers. This is the objective. And this was what Turkey wanted. There were other ethnic groups also, by the way, the Syrians, the Greeks, they also were pushed out. That's another story.
Why you say you love America for the reason that it accepts everyone.
It accepts everyone, but as I said,
it did.
America's head rests on troubled shoulders because we perpetrated ethnic cleansing in the colonies, American colonies, all the way to California. And the stories are plentiful of what happened to the natives.
Thou shalt not kill. It's right there.
The Trail of Tears, you know how the natives were pushed out of Oklahoma. So a majority people...
This is all too common.
Yeah, it is common. And majority people, if they don't accept the minorities living among them, eventually want them out. That's what's scary about what's happening in America today. When they say we want the immigrants out, it is not just the illegal immigrant, it is the immigrants out. How can they do that when over the majority of Americans are not native Anglo-Saxon European Americans any longer? So this is the problem.
Agree.
So politically, it might get you some votes, but eventually it'll get you tears. A lot of tears.
So it's a short term.
It is a very short term.
Get in, cash out, leave.
It is a short term.
And affect everybody's life. Are we still good on counting?
Now, what?
Just checking the camera.
Okay.
Don't worry, that kind of stuff never makes it.
Now, Lemkin came to the United States after the Second World War, and a professor from Duke University convinced him to come and teach at Duke.
Okay.
He taught at Duke, but he was a very...
I like when you use pop culture terms. It's easy for the younger audience to connect. Oh,
Sure.
Duke. Everybody knows, like,
They're known for their basketball team,
Coach K.
and they lost to North Carolina. This year.
Oh, that's got to be tough. I'm pretty sure that's rival stuff right there.
Now, historically, it's important to know that the draft resolution for a genocide convention was laid before the General Assembly of the United Nations on the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. It was formally presented and adopted on the 9th of November 1948. Now, in 1951, Lemkin only partially achieved his goal when the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide came into force after the 20th nation had ratified it. It was later on that America ratified it.
Okay.
Now, this man, he lost his family. He was not married. He did not have his own family. He came to America. He ended up in New York. And the tragic story is he was kind of a nonconformist kind of a guy.
Okay.
Always angry at what, and very possessed with this whole issue.
Okay.
In the last years of his life, he was living in poverty in New York apartment. In 1959, at the age of 59, he died of a heart attack in a subway station.
Wow.
That is the story of a man that I honor. I honor his memory today. And
Well, 60 was good for back then.
Yeah. Now I hear this, I don't know, you may help me with this. Every year, the rabbinic call for human rights, called the Truah,
Okay.
gives the Raphael Lemkin Human Rights Award to a layperson who draws on his or her Jewish values to be a human rights leader.
What?
I don't know who got it this year.
So every year they have an award.
Now, in Russia today, his writings are not accepted.
Of course not.
And his article, Soviet Genocide in the Ukraine, interestingly enough,
Okay.
this is in 1915. He wrote an article, was added to the Russian index of extremist publications, quote unquote,
Of course.
whose distribution in Russia is forbidden.
So this man wrote a book on the consistent atrocities of man
And
how they kind of came together and what they had in common.
and he is exactly, and he's fascinated with how.
Did he put a personal opinion into it as well, or was it more of a historical?
Well, I have not read those books to
Okay.
tell you. I'm sure he has.
Yeah, he sounded like a guy who
But his thesis
stood on a
is
soapbox.
his thesis is governments do this. Throughout history, they've been doing it, and the time to stop it has come. The time has come when minorities living in the midst of majority people must not be ostracized and pushed aside and eventually eliminated. This is what's happened to the Armenians.
We're all people.
They were pushed out of central, what is of Turkey today, all the way, and 1/10 of them only survived in what is known today as Armenia. It was Soviet Armenia. Okay.
I put myself in I try to put myself in a soldier's position where you're ordered to move people or to eliminate people. So I took it upon myself to look up beautiful Armenian women on Instagram.
Oh boy, you did.
And they were all about, I'd say 18 to 25
Yeah.
was what came up. And I scrolled through these pictures, and these are not ugly women.
No, sir.
They are Middle Eastern princesses. They're gorgeous. And this is why I never understood how this could happen. I always felt like soldiers, that's why I didn't do good in the military. I had too much of a heart. That's why I was a medic. And I really feel like people would find a common ground. To not find a common ground, for this to exist on a consistent level, it's sad, it's upsetting, And it's frustrating to see all the pretty girls and smart people
and
the music we've missed out on. The
music of the Armenians is very haunting. It's very mysterious, haunting, exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
Well-known composers, Aram Khachaturian, you may have heard of him.
Okay.
Saber dance, you may have heard of the saber dance. That's him.
I'm gonna write that down.
Now, I want to share on a personal note.
Please do.
How is it I ended up surviving?
That is
Okay.
truly my favorite story about my
Okay.
people. So,
Well, my mother came from. She was a student in a missionary school in Marash,
okay.
and they escaped in the middle of the night in a snowstorm, heavy snowstorm. They said, we better get out before we are massacred. So several hundred get together, and in the snowstorm, and the story is written, there's a book that has the story, they escaped, they walked out of there, and eventually reached shelter and were evacuated.
Through a snowstorm.
In a blinding blizzard.
Wow.
Otherwise, I'd have been gone.
Yeah.
My dad, he was a young man when he was drafted into the Turkish army
Wow.
in the 1913-14, before this fateful day. And you know, Armenians in the army were not allowed to carry guns
Oh wow.
because they're afraid to turn against
Well,
their
yeah.
officers. And
Friendly fire.
So they were really slaves. And he ended up in the war in Palestine against the Ottoman Empire by the British. And the British, as you know, finally overwhelmed the Turkish General Allenby was a British general.
Okay.
And they captured Jerusalem, 1918, and took the Turkish soldiers into captivity. And my father was one among them. He was taken to Egypt.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, he was taken to Egypt. And when they found out he spoke English, number one, and number two, that he was a historian, geographer, he knew the terrain by heart.
Okay.
He was studying.
Okay.
They thought, we need Jews.
Yes.
So they brought him into the area where the officers were living and became an official translator for the British officers. He says, I lived better as a prisoner than I did when I was a soldier.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was free to roam. They were not afraid about him. And he one day was called in. He says, there's somebody that wants to talk to you. He said, okay. He says, they took me in a tent. There was this gentleman, as a soldier, officer, high up you could tell,
Okay.
who wanted me to tell him all I knew about the geography of what is known today Palestine and Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Wow.
You know why?
Why?
That's where the railroad ran, from Turkey all the way down the spine through modern Palestine,
Okay.
Israel, and down into Arabia all the way to Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And the British were sabotaging the line.
Okay. Yeah, beans and bullets.
And guess who was in charge of that?
Who? That high-ranking officer?
Yeah, the high-ranking officer who is, oh my God, what's his name? The famous guy. We had his movie made of. It'll come to me any minute.
Okay.
Anyway, he was, he was interviewed by this high-ranking British officer. Later on, he found they never told him who he was. Yeah. So that's how it is. And he was
Wow.
released at the end of the war.
Wow.
And he ended up in Cyprus,
Oh.
where he already knew his wife to be. They were engaged. They were married in Cyprus. And in 1931, I was born.
Wow.
I was the first one. Yeah.
Baby Varkas.
Baby Varkas. I was the fourth child. Wow. So that's my story, how I grew up, born and raised in Cyprus.
Wow.
But knowing these stories. Now, these stories are passed on to us. The most famous statement, many of our hearers, I'm sure, know who William Saroyan is.
Okay.
William Saroyan is an author, as I said, a Pulitzer Prize winner. The Human Comedy was a well-known book he wrote, Time of Our Life, etc. He wrote, "I should like to see any power of the world destroy this race. This small tribe of unimportant people whose wars have all been fought and lost,
Wow.
whose structures have crumbled, literature is unread, music is unheard, and prayers are no more answered. Go ahead, destroy Armenia. See if you can do it. Send them into the desert without bread or water, burn their homes and churches, then see if they will not laugh, sing, and pray again. When two of them meet anywhere in the world, see if they will not create a new Armenia." There's a little Armenia in Hollywood today.
Yes.
So that is so true. It's tragic, but true. So that's my story for you today.
Hope is frail, but it's hard to kill.
Yes.
It's song lyrics from a story of the Exodus of Egypt by the Hebrews, and I really love the audacity when horrible things are being done. Go ahead, try your best. It's never going to work.
The name of the man came to me who I was talking about, this officer. He was Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh my goodness.
You've heard of Lawrence of
That
Arabia?
I've heard of.
And there's a famous movie.
That's right.
And
so your dad met the guy.
And he was interviewed to get the geography.
Well, of course. And as a soldier, I know the first thing you need to know is the lay of the land, especially if there's railroad tracks. And
Yeah. Anyway, so
wow.
My dad's brush with history. And
there's another one you have.
Yeah.
There's another piece of paper you have.
I don't know if I want to read it. Should I
know
read
you
it?
want to read it. I'm making you read it.
Well,
because this is a Pod-Kass.
The genocide is enough to talk about it, but hard enough to experience it.
But if you want to experience it, you can look through some pictures in here in the 100 Years Strong.
But if you're caught in the middle of it,
you want to hear somebody who was in the middle of it and how they felt. This is what you read to me earlier that was, especially the ending, is quite...
Yeah, this is written by a poet.
Yeah, give us some context here.
Yeah, he wrote during the genocide. He was experiencing it. He was seeing it. And he was... what's the word? He was suffering, angry, and completely devastated. His faith was devastated. Now, the faith in God in times like this is always shaken.
Okay.
You wonder, where is God? People ask me when they have tragedy, where is God when this happened? Why did not God do something about it? So a lot of our people have asked that. There's stories of priests leading people in the Holocaust marches to the desert, still praying with these people, trying to maintain their faith, and burying them alongside of the road as they're walking along. Can you imagine that? And all those pictures I gave you.
Soldier, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And at this, you were on the winning side.
Yeah. And we still experience.
Now, Solomon Taylorian, Vahan Tekeyan, is the author of this prayer. That is, I hesitate to share it because it's
a bit one-sided.
Not one-sided. It is very traumatic.
Yes. So.
Okay. Should it happen, we do not endure. Now he's writing in the middle of the Holocaust now. Should it happen, we do not endure this uneven fight, and drained of strength and agonized, we fall on death's ground, not to rise, and the great crime ends with the last Armenian eyes closing without seeing a victorious day. Let us swear that when we find God in his paradise offering comfort to make amends for our pain, let us swear that we will refuse, saying, no, send us to hell again. We choose hell. You made us know it well. Keep your paradise for the, I won't say for whom.
Okay.
For the perpetrator.
Correct.
That is the feeling.
That's desperation.
As I said before, I met a man in my father's living room years later, about 20 years ago. He said, "You're a minister?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You believe in God?" I said, "Yes." He said, "My God died in 1914. Here's a man whose God died.
Yes.
The Holocaust has a lot of Jews whose God died in 1930s and 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So faith is hard to hang on to when you're losing everything, including your life. That's another thing. What kind of faith can hang on and still say, we shall live again, we shall laugh again?
There is a statement that Erica and I use when we start to falter, and that's stay in the boat. And it's a reference to Jesus sleeping in the boat.
Okay.
Everybody else freaking out.
Yeah.
If you just stay in the boat.
Stay in the boat, it won't sink.
But it's easy to say that when you can go to your local grocery store and get offended by anything and comment on social media. But when you're being driven out of your home, your entire race is being driven out of their land. It's a lot harder of a pill to swallow, and a lot of people will never know that kind of pain or agony, and I'm thankful for it. But I think today is a great way to remind people that it is not about forgetting the past. Those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. It's an old statement.
Yeah.
But I am very thankful today that you came to remind us on the day of the Armenian Holocaust.
Well,
on the Remembrance Day, talking about there's still an award out there for humanitarianism developed from it.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is nice to know that out of tragedy, there still was some silver lining. There was still fight. And that's why I liked the one about the guy saying, go ahead, try and extinguish us. It'll never happen. Versus my God is dead. It's definitely the two different sides of genocide.
Armenians will not say God is dead. If you go to Armenia, the only structures remaining from ancient history are the churches.
Wow.
What
does that say?
There's only one.
What does that say?
Yeah. Yeah, and I tell you, they're all over, and there's one structure that I come across that's or pre-Christian, pagan pre-Christian, like a Doric temple. There's one Greek Doric temple. Otherwise, all the rest are all churches, ancient churches built 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 years ago. By the way, there are all kinds of books telling their story.
Okay.
And the one that I loved a lot when I read it, it's still, I believe, in print. It is called The Burning Tigris, Tigris. It's the Tigris River. Many women threw themselves into the river to commit suicide when they came to it, to the border of Syria and Turkey.
Because?
Because there was no future, they were being raped and killed and everything else. Now, Peter Balakian is the author, Balakian, Peter Balakian, The Burning Tigris, the Armenian Genocide, and America's Response. Fantastic story about America's response. How in the early days they organized rescue missions. The first overseas mission of the Red Cross was for the Armenians.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stories like that.
Well, maybe we should do a little book club down the road. Sounds to me like. Now, just to foreshadow a little bit.
Yeah.
Book of Timothy.
I don't know. We'll do that.
We're not going to do it now. I just
Well-
want to let people know where we're headed.
Well, I don't know.
We have a Book of Timothy coming up.
I don't know if we're headed there. You'd like that, I know.
I would really like that.
But, well, this is the book itself.
Yes.
Timothy. Okay.
Yes, and it just gives me
Yeah.
rooms for notes and everything.
Yeah, there's some fantastic.
We went through the book of Job, and the reason I brought this up was to get to Job because we learned a lot about Job.
Yeah.
We learned a lot about loss, this genocide as a whole. Anybody who's been through an ethnic cleansing in their family's history, they know how lucky they are to be here, me included, you
Well.
included. And I just want you to know that I think when we go through the books on the podcast, the actual books, they apply to so many scenarios. So I'm excited to do another book
Okay.
with you.
All right.
And I can draw a lot from Job to today.
Okay. Great.
And it is hard. It is pretty much impossible. You've seen people have lost all their hope. They've said their God is dead.
Well,
We are here.
they're saying God is dead for other reasons as well.
Correct.
That science has replaced God for many people, but science comes to a dead end at a certain point.
This is why we are here to spread the word,
Yeah.
and we spread it digitally so it spreads evenly.
Amen.
And I'm excited to see the future. Thank you for sharing with us.
So thank you for
It's a beautiful legacy interview.
you.
I know it took a lot for you. I know it brings up a lot of feelings too.
it. Does.
So I just want to make sure you know that we recognize the struggle internally you go through as you go through this. But if we don't go through it and people don't know about it, there's a chance
Yeah.
it could repeat.
And I don't want people to forget Raphael Lemkin. Hollywood should have a documentary on his life. I don't know why they haven't done it already.
Well, I have a production team. Let's see what we can do about it.
Well, that's fantastic.
Always a pleasure.
Blessings. Have a great day.
Let's speak it into existence.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can do a documentary. Sounds like fun.